بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And today we're going to go over our first video episode of the beneficial book, The Rights of Brotherhood, that was authored by our Sheikh Salih Ibn Abdul Aziz and the Sheikh Habibullah. The Sheikh wrote this book because the bonds of faith had become weak in some hearts. He reminds us that the bonds of brotherhood must be protected, not broken, when differences arise between the people of Sunnah. He also reminds us that our brotherhood and mutual love for each other is a mercy from Allah and not just a cultural ceremony. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بينهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم. Translation, which is, and He has united their hearts. If you had spent all that's in the earth, you could not have united their hearts, but Allah has united them. Certainly, He is Almighty, all-wise. And Imam Sa'id rahimahullah said in the translation of his tafsir, when Allah says, وَأَلَفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ, and He brought their hearts together, so they gathered and united upon that strength, increased because of their unity. This was not due to anyone's efforts, nor any power other than the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you had spent all the gold and silver on the earth to bring them together, after that intense hostility and division, you could not have brought their hearts together, because none has the power to change hearts except Allah. But Allah brought them together. Indeed, He is exalted, wise, and mighty. And from His might is that He brought their hearts together and united them after their division. In this introductory lesson, we begin by reflecting on the title of the book itself. It sets the tone for everything that follows. So let us examine the words linguistically and from the religion of Islam. The linguistic title, meaning of the book, al-huquq, meaning rights, is the plural of the word haqqa, which means something is firm, real, and certain. Allah says, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And do not mix truth with falsehood, nor conceal the truth, and you know the truth. The singular form haqq also means truth, an obligation, or that something is due. The plural huquq refers to duties, entitlements, or legitimate claims that are established and binding. In Islam, when something is haqq, it is not just a social agreement, it is a moral and divine obligation. Therefore, what's to be understood from the title is that these rights are based in truth and they're also mandatory, according to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the example of His Messenger, Muhammad ibn Abdullaah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The word ikhwa, the brotherhood, the root word akh, meaning brother, al-ukhuwa is a state or condition of being brothers. In the Arabic language, al-ukhuwa can mean biological brotherhood, meaning shared parentage. It can mean a tribal brotherhood or a national bond. But most importantly, and this is the focus here, is a brotherhood based upon a bond of faith. The Quran uses the term to describe the bond of faith among brothers. Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Indeed, the believers are but brothers. This is not merely symbolic. is a religious reality, a divine connection that Allah Himself established. This book is not about brotherhood in the social sense, but about the faith-based connection that obligates mutual rights among those who follow the Sunnah. The meaning of the title, therefore, Huquq al-Ikhwa, the rights of the brothers who are connected by Islam owe to each other. The rights that brothers owe to one another as Muslims. These rights are part of our religious accountability, not merely social matters. The purpose of this book, among the purposes, is to revive the Sunnah-based understanding of Muslim unity. How Muslim unity is understood from the Kitab, and how the unity among Muslims is understood from the Sunnah. The bonds of brotherhood between the Muslims is not only a duty, but is a mercy from Allah and a gift that He bestows upon the believers. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُم بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِنَ النَّارِ فَأَنقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Translation, which is, and hold fast, all of you together, to the rope of Allah, meaning this Qur'an, and be not divided among yourselves. And remember Allah's favor on you, because you were enemies one to another, but He joined your hearts together, so that by His grace you became brothers in this faith of Islam. And you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and He saved you from it. Thus Allah makes His ayat, makes His proofs, makes His evidence, makes the verses, the lessons, and signs and revelations, He makes them clear to you that you may be guided. So Sheikh Imām Sa'di, may Allah have mercy on him, states the following about the meaning of this verse. And remember the favor of Allah upon you when you were enemies, meaning you were killing each other, taking each other's money, until the tribe was hostile to each other, and the people of the one city were hostile and fighting each other, and there was great evil. This was the state of the islands before the mission of the Prophet ﷺ began. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Him, and they believed in Him, and they congregated upon Islam, and their hearts were united on faith, they were like one person. From the unity of their hearts and their loyalty, some of them to one another. For this reason, He said, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. So He brought your hearts together, and you became, by His grace, brothers. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى الشَّفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِنَ النَّارِ فَأَنقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا. You were on the brink of a fire, meaning you deserved to be in hell. And nothing remained between you and it except that you died and entered it. That He saved you from it by what He bestowed upon you of the faith in the Prophet ﷺ. Then He says, thus Allah makes clear to you His verses. Meaning, this clarity means He clarifies and explains them. He shows you the truth from falsehood in them, and guidance from misguidance, that you may be guided. Guided by knowing the truth and acting upon it. This verse is evidence that Allah loves for His servants to remember His blessings in their hearts and on their tongues, so they may increase in their gratitude and love for him, and so that he may increase them in his grace and kindness. And among the greatest blessings that are remembered is the blessing of guidance to Islam, following the messenger of Allah, bless him and grant him peace, and the unity of the Muslims that comes from that, not separation and disunity. Therefore, brothers and sisters, brotherhood in Islam is not only a duty, it is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a favor that he bestows upon the believers. Brotherhood in Islam is both a favor, a fault from Allah that must be preserved, as well as a source of happiness for the believers, more precious than physical wealth. Allah says, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ وَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِّمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. Say, in the bounty of Allah and in His mercy, meaning Islam and the Qur'an, therein let them rejoice. That is better than the wealth they amass. Found in Surah Yunus, verse 58. Ibn Hatim, in his tafsir, said about this verse, when the revenue from Iraq was brought to Umar ibn Khattab, Umar went out with a servant of his and began counting the camels. When he saw how many there were, he said, Alhamdulillah, the Most High. His servant said, by Allah, this is from the bounty of Allah and His mercy. Umar said, you are wrong. This is not what Allah meant when He said, say, the bounty of Allah and in His mercy, in that let them rejoice. It is better than what they gather. This wealth is merely part of what they gather. And so the mercy of Allah, the favor of Allah is better than that. This narration highlights Umar ibn Khattab's deep understanding of the Quran. When he saw the wealth of Iraq arriving in the form of livestock and tribute, he didn't consider this to be the true meaning of the bounty of Allah and His mercy. Rather, he made it clear that the true joy and celebration should be over Allah's guidance. The religion of Islam and the Quran, not worldly possessions. The bounty of Allah, Fadlullah, is interpreted by many early scholars in Islam, interpreted to be Islam itself. The bounty of Allah is interpreted by many early scholars of Islam to be Islam. The mercy is often understood to be the Quran. The bounty of Allah, Fadlullah, which includes the brotherhood of believing Muslims, is interpreted by many early scholars as the religion of Islam itself. His mercy, rahimahullah, rahmatullahi, is all understood by them to be the Qur'an. At-Tabari says, rahimahullah, his tafsir, the bounty of Allah is Islam, and the mercy is the Qur'an. This is found in Tafsir al-Tabari, Jami' al-Bayan, Tafsir Surah Yunus, verse 58. Sheikh Salih reminds us that brotherhood is divine trust, not a human invention. Preserving it is a religious act, part of fearing Allah and loving His messengers, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abandoning the bonds of brotherhood leads to fitna, division, and the withdrawal of divine mercy. These verses remind us that the bond of Islamic brotherhood did not come from people. It is a display, a manifestation of divine mercy. Sheikh Saudi points out that the existence of brotherhood itself is a grace from Allah and that it's our duty to preserve it, honor it, and not to allow personal or biased differences to corrupt it. Its preservation is a sign of fearing Allah and desire to have His mercy. It must be protected and not allowed to scatter believing Muslims whenever differences arise between people of Sunnah. Those who remain steadfast and patient will be rewarded on the day of resurrection. Our Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam assured us of this outcome in the following narration. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله يقول يوم القيامة عن المتحبون بجلاله اليوم أظلهم في ظل يوم لا ظل إلا ظلي. Abu Hurraira reported Allah's messenger as saying, verily, Allah would say in their resurrection, where are those who have mutual love for my glory's sake? Today, I shall shelter them in my shade when there's no shade other than my shade. Those who have mutual love for my glory's sake, in the hadith, it means those who formed a bond of brotherhood because of me and the desire to please me, meaning Allah. This hadith explains that the reason they were endeared to one another was not wealth or blood ties or any other secular consideration. Rather, it was for the sake of Allah, the Most High. He says, this is the following about this brotherhood of faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His kitab about the brotherhood of faith, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. Translation, which is, the believers, men and women, are awliya, they're helpers, supporters, friends, and protectors of one another. They enjoin, that is them, they enjoin on people the ma'ruf, and they forbid for people munkar, polytheism, and disbelief of all kinds that Islam has forbidden. And they perform salah, and they give zakat, and they obey Allah and His Messenger. Allah will have His mercy on them. Surely Allah is Almighty, all-wise. We must conclude that this type of brotherhood, established upon this type of love, has great value and virtue. The Quranic verses and authentic narrations mentioned during this episode establish this fact. اللهم أقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول بيننا وبين معاصيك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا ما أحييتنا واجعله وارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا. Ibn Umar said, rarely would the Messenger of Allah stand from a sitting until he supplicated with these words for his companions. O Allah, apportion for us fear of you that shall come between us and disobedience of you, and of obedience to you, which will cause us to obtain your paradise, and of certainty, which shall make the afflictions of the world easy for us, and enjoyment of our hearing and our seeing and our strength as long as you keep us alive, and make it the inheritance of us, and let our vengeance be upon those who wrong us, and aid us against those who show enmity toward us, and do not make our affliction in our religion, and do not make this world our greatest concern, nor the limit of our knowledge, and do not give power over us to those who will not have mercy on us. Ameen, Ya Rabbi. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.